Hello YouTube viewers, this is going to be a pretty extensive track guide for Calabogie Motorsports Park. If you don't know who I am, I'm a CMP coach for the track. My name is James Bergeron. I've driven this track quite a bit. I've raced on it. I'm also an automotive journalist kind of on the side, so I've driven a lot of street cars as well as race cars around this track. I think I've done a few thousand laps on this track now, and I kind of know it like the back of my hand. So I'm hoping this guide helps out. If you watch this guide fully and you don't agree with some of the things I say, I am receptive to updating my guide, of course, and we can see what you think is different. And please do comment on that if you think I'm doing something wrong and you can do something better. What I've driven on the track, I've driven pretty much everything. From a Toyota Corolla to, of course, my Formula 2000 that you're going to see in this video. Had an SR3 Radical for a year and a bit and drove that around quite extensively. I've driven the Calabogie Mustangs around this track. I've driven supercars, McLarens, Lamborghinis, Porsches, Ferraris, students' cars. I've instructed HPDE events, instruct for Calabogie as well as MCO, BMW Club. So I've done quite a bit of instructing and quite a bit of driving on this track. I've raced in some races as well, of course. Raced in the Formula Libre races, as well as I've done the Calabogie Series races and chump car races at this track as well. So I've got quite a bit of experience here, and I'm hoping that this guide can help you out. Please do, if you watch this whole video especially, please do like and comment the video, and if you can subscribe to my channel, do that as well. At the end of the video, it is quite a long video, about an hour long, and that's because there's quite a bit of detail. There is a hot lap at the end of the video, and you can fast forward to that if you just want to see it in high speed, but that's not the point of the video. The point of the video is to show you very detailed instructions on how to get around this track, visual cues, and other elements of the track to help you out. And if you are an instructor at this track, I'm hoping that this can really help you help students out to get around safely and quickly. So let's move on. So here I am in my Formula car at Calabogie Motorsports Park. And first thing I want to apologize, just the video is a little bit grainy, but it's the best video I've got right now. If this is a popular video, I can do another one next year when I get a little bit higher quality video, but it works pretty well, and you'll see, and we'll go over all the different points on the track here. So first thing, down the front straight here, this is the front straight at Calabogie Motorsports Park, and we roll down through here and come up to the start finish line right here. You want to be as close to the grass as you can, right? You want to be along the grass right here with your wheel, and as you come up to the next corner here, come up to corner 1, which is the kink here, is a high-speed corner. Most cars, you're probably not going to downshift for corner 1. You're going to be coming down here full throttle, usually 4th gear down the front straight here, and we're going to roll this forward. And as you see, I'm going to keep my tire in the same spot. My wheel's actually straight here, and you're going to see these cones which cut off for short track, and then now you'll notice I'm really close to the grass here. So I haven't really changed my direction, but the track kind of moves over a little bit, and so you're going to be really close to the grass right here, a little bit further on that first part. So then you've got your 3 and then your 2 and 1 in the background there for your braking zone. So depending on the car, if you've got a heavy car or a fast car, you're going to have to get on the brakes pretty hard here. Of course, in the Formula car, you're a lift or just flat out through corner 1. But you're going to get on the brakes pretty hard through here. And you are going to look left. You see, you can already, so this camera's on my head here. You can already see my head is turning to the left to look where I want to go. Now, of course, at Calabogie, they have cones out. So there's a cone right here, and that is basically the turn-in point. But you shouldn't really rely on those cones, so we're going to try to look for things we can look at to get ready to turn, right? So if you notice one thing where that cone is, the track starts curving right at that cone, right? So we can basically ignore the cone and use the visual cue of the track. So if we were to keep driving straight here, of course, we're going to go off track. So you're going to have to start turning there. Now, the real key here is to not, as you turn ahead, as you can see here, I've turned my head, and I'm going to start rolling this forward. You can see my head's turning even more, but I'm not turning the steering wheel. The car is still traveling straight and is still rolling in that straight line, right? And I pretty much do turn almost exactly at that cone. I start turning in, but my visual cue isn't the cone, of course. The visual cue here, right here. So the edge of the wall, it curves there. So I'm going to go back in, show you there so you can see it. It kind of curves. And then that's kind of my turn-in point. So we'll follow this along. Of course, always looking where you want to go, right? So you're going to come into there, and there is a cone here which marks the apex, and then we're looking kind of out here for the exit, right? There's a rumble strip out here, so we're going to try to get out there. You know, you don't, if your car doesn't need to get all the way out there, you don't have to push yourself out there. But if you're carrying a ton of speed, you're going to get pushed out there anyways. So we'll roll this forward. I do miss the apex in this lap. It looks like just, you know, by a foot or so. It could have been a little bit better here. Let the car track out. I don't need to go right to the rumble strip. But as you can see here, I'm pretty close here, right? And I'm lined up. So I've got the right angle, right trajectory here. So now we're going to come down into corner 2, and we're going to accelerate through here. So we get on the gas. I'm going to roll that back just so I can explain kind of what the car is doing at this point. So lift or brake. So if you're in a sedan, you're going to be on the brakes here. No need to downshift usually. Most cars, I don't need to downshift. You're going to now lift off the gas, turn into the corner, and when you get about here, you're back on the gas and you're accelerating through this corner. So you're full out throttle now, and you're driving towards the wall for corner 2. Now there is, right, and try to find a clean frame, cleanish frame here. There is a mark on the ground here, right? There's like a bump here. So you can use that bump as a reference point. It's best to use as many reference points on the track. Sometimes it's by feel, not necessarily by sight. So there's a bump on the track there. And then depending on the weight of your car, you're either going to be braking, you know, before you feel that bump or after you feel that bump. Most cars, if you're braking hard, it's actually after the bump. But it really depends on the car. So in the Formula car, of course, I'm not braking until kind of past the bump down here. So roll that forward, and you're going to see, so corner 2, now this is the only part where it's really blurry in the camera. It actually gets better after these first couple corners. So here's a reference point. So you've got a reference point here, end of the wall, and you've got your entry to corner 2 over here. There is a marshal hut also at the end of the wall right here. So if you've got a marshal there in a race, there's usually no marshal if it's a lapping day, but there is a marshal if it's a race. So take a look at what that marshal is telling you, and then use that end of the wall as your reference point. So you'll see as we come into this corner, as I roll this, you know, also the one thing I need to mention here is you need to be close to this wall. So don't be afraid of the wall. And if we come back, I'll roll this back a bit. So there's a couple schools of thought here. If you're going really slow, of course, you can line yourself up with the wall and drive down there. But if you're going faster, you're going to be coming from this rumble strip, and you're going to be coming to the wall on an angle, right? And that's okay. You come to the wall on an angle, brake on an angle. You might be braking towards the wall, and then you can turn the corner, okay? It is quite a sharp corner here. So you don't need to be parallel with the wall at this point. You just want to be towards the wall, and then you're going to use the end of the wall here as your turning point. So roll that forward, come up over the bump. See, this is where the camera gets really blurry. As we come up over the bump, my head's shaking, and nice and clear there. My head is starting to turn. You can see my head starting to turn, and I'm getting closer and closer to the wall as I'm driving here. So I'm going to get pretty close. You'll see that by the time I get to this point, so at this point I still got a couple of feet from my tire to the wall. It's hard to kind of tell exactly how much in the video, but there's a couple feet there easily. By the time I get here, though, By the time I get right here, that's whenever my tire will be really close to the wall, using as much track as I can in order to get into the apex here. So we'll use that end of the wall as your end of kind of braking and your turn-in point. You're going to be you'll be on the brakes at this point and downshifting. Most cars you can go down to third gear. You don't really need second gear much on this track. So go down to third gear, look into the corner here, and you're going to turn into the apex. And you'll see as we get there what we can be looking at. So we'll roll that forward a couple frames, and you see I'm getting closer to the wall here, and I'm turning my head, and this is where it's really blurry. I'm going to try to find a clear frame. There's a clear frame. So you can't see my tire because I'm turning my head, but you can see that I'm pretty darn close to the wall at this point. All right, so we'll zoom back out there, and so right here, I'm driving pretty close to the wall with that tire. And now look over to the right. There is a cone here, and again, try not to use those cones. You can when you're learning, of course. Try not to use them as reference points because they will move or be taken off the track on you, especially if you're racing, if you're doing a chump car race or a champ car race, that it's called now. Those might be gone. But what you're going to do is, I kind of use, you can't see past this wall at this point, right? But as I'm driving, I will be able to see past this wall, and you'll see the Marshall hut up kind of here behind those trees. So keep your eyes up, look ahead through the corner as far as you can, and if you do that, this is your reference point here. You've seen this, you don't need to look at it anymore. I'm starting to turn my head, and I'm looking up along the track here. So I'm going to roll this a little bit more forward and come into here. There's a clear frame. I don't know why this is so blurry. It is clearer later on the video. And as you can see now, it's kind of opening up here, and you can start looking further ahead. So you can actually use this wall to kind of imagine what's behind it, right? So you can imagine what's behind there once you've seen it a few times when you've done this track. So I've done a lot of laps here, so obviously I turn my head, I kind of know where I'm going at this point. Now this corner is quite sharp, and there's a rumble strip out here on the left-hand side of the track, so we're going to get ourselves into this apex and keep your eyes way up. So now this is where I'm looking. I'm already looking. You can see my head is turned. I'm looking up at the Marshall station up here. I'm not looking at this cone. I'm not looking at this apex. I'm not looking at this exit. I'm already looking what's up here at the Marshall station to see if there's a flag at the Marshall station. And it's a double whammy because there's a flag at the Marshall station maybe, as well as that is my turn-in point. So I use the Marshall station up here as my turn-in point for corner 3. So roll that forward, right on the apex this time. I'll let the car track out to the left. And you don't need to go all the way the rumble strip on the left-hand side here. I'm pretty close. I'm using as much track as I can here on the left-hand side. And again, right here, there's the Marshall station. Kind of hard to see in the video. Actually, I'll zoom in. There you can see that Marshall station there. And then our turn-in for corner 3. So that's where I'm going to turn. Now, here's the trick. You can't see it. So this, you kind of, the first few times around here, you're not going to do it right. But this is one of those corners. It's almost muscle memory, but not quite, because I have this Marshall station to go by. Now, it is pretty critical because you have a long straight after this corner. This corner is pretty important. So we come up to this corner here. We'll roll this forward. Keep your wheels straight, but turn your head, right? So I've got my wheels straight, but my head's turned, and I'm starting to turn into the corner. I actually turn, surprisingly, I'm going to roll this through. I'm right on the apex, maybe a little bit early on that apex on that one. So I actually, excuse me, started turning just before it, right? You see you can turn it here. Now on this car I'm carrying a lot of speed here, right? So that makes a big difference on that turn. So what we're going to do is, because this is so important, you're going to lift off here. Most cars you don't need to brake at this point. You can kind of just lift off the gas turn the corner, and then get back on the gas. You have to get, because this corner is a little bit off camber here, you have to get on the gas early or the car will want to slide across the track, right? So you want to get on the gas super early here so that the car can settle back down and you don't slide across the track and end up here. So there is another cone here, which is your exit, and there's as of this year some pavement, a little bit extra pavement on the exit there, but you don't really want to be out there. Ideally, if you can make this corner and be about mid-track, you don't want to go all the way out to the left-hand side if you don't have to. You want to be able to get on the gas as soon as you can. So you can sacrifice a little bit in corner 3 so that you can accelerate through corner 4, which is flat out in most cars, almost every car, that's flat out. And so you want to get on the gas as early as you can for corner 3 so you can make it through 4 and down the long, straight and rocky road. If you come through here too fast and you end up out here, you're going to be waiting to get on the gas, getting your car back over here to turn into corner 4. If you sacrifice a little bit in corner 3, you're going to come through here, you're going to be about mid-track, and you can get on the gas early, hard, and then through. So it makes more sense, right? If you end up coming out here, you've got to force yourself back. You're going to have to wait, and it's going to be a fraction of a second to wait to get back on the gas full throttle, but that'll make a big difference by the end of the straight. So we'll roll this through here. I get out pretty far here, but in the Formula car, I'm carrying a ton of speed, and I'm able to still go flat through this section. I'm definitely not lifting here. This is flat out through corner 4. So where's the visual for corner 4? Really, I'm just looking ahead, and you can see the apex here. You can see the curbing. So just use the curbing as my visual, and then I'm flat out through it. And if I'm in a sedan, I'm a little bit more mid-track. Actually, if I come back here, you can see I'm heading kind of towards mid-track at this point. So here's the edge, and I'm kind of heading towards to the right to make that corner. And I'm a little bit more mid-track in a sedan, so that as I said, I can get on the gas earlier and accelerate out. So let's roll that forward. So get close to the apex here, and this is flat out. Corner 4 is easy. That's the name of it, and it is easy. So flat out and all the way to the right. That's because I'm forced out there. Again, don't use too much track if you don't need it. But if you're full out in a car, in a quick car, you're going to need it. If you're in a slower car, like in a Miata, let's say, you may not need to come out all the way to the edge of the track here. Now, rocky road, long straight, you're going to be going from 3rd to 4th gear, and I'll roll that back just to talk about gearing for a second. You're in most cars, I'd say you're probably holding 3rd gear until after this corner. Some cars you're going to run out of gear between these two corners. Try not to shift and upset the car through the corner. Wait till about here if you have to shift. Typically we're going into 4th gear about this point after the straight, and then some point down the straight you're going to go into 5th gear in most cars. Now in this car I only need 4th gear, so I'm in 4th gear. There's probably that little bump that just happened right there. And then here's a couple of schools of thought on corner 5. Okay, so corner 5 is interesting. Lots of different people take it different ways. Typically, if I'm instructing a new student, I'm going to ask them to line themselves up parallel with the grass here. Okay, so I'm going to just roll it back a little bit. If you're new to the track, you're going to kind of meander over this side, right? So we'll go back to the exit of the corner, and then we're driving to the left-hand side of the track, headed towards the left-hand side of the track where those numbers are in that braking zone. Now, like I said, if I'm instructing a new student, I'm going to ask them to be driving parallel with the grass the whole way down here. That is so that we can take corner 5, erase that, take corner 5 straight down the hill. Okay, so it's a right-hand turn straight down the hill, and I'd ask them to take it that way. If I'm in with a student that's faster, or if I'm driving myself, I'm not quite going parallel with the track, kind of coming in on an angle a little bit like I did in corner 2, where I'm heading towards the edge of the track and then turning into the corner. And it ends up being, because the car is there, let's erase that and try to draw it a little bit better. The car is kind of doing that. It's the same point at this point, except it's simpler to come straight down and turn rather than coming across turn. Now, what I'm doing there is I'm saving a bit of travel distance coming across and setting myself up for the corner. And of course, if somebody wants to pass me, it's going to be harder for them to get, because I'm going to covering the inside. It's harder for them to get a pass rather than if I'm driving straight down here, well, then they're just going to come on the inside and do that to me and pass me. So that's what I'm doing there. If I'm driving down that way, roll this forward. So I'm coming over towards the grass into the braking zone. So you're going to have a couple downshifts most likely here. You're going to get on the brakes. Most sedans, you're going to get on the brakes at the 3. Faster, a little bit lighter cars, you're going to be maybe at the 2. In a Formula car, you're going to get on the brakes at the 1 or past the 1. And it's funny because there's a turn-in cone here, right? I kind of ignore that turn-in cone. And I'm looking, where am I looking on this one? I'm looking at this marshal, see if there's a flag. And here's the edge of the track right here. And the track actually goes this way. And you'll see a lot of people will drive here, jig left, and then turn right. And the problem with that is you're upsetting the car a little bit. And we notice a lot of new drivers will do that. They'll jig left. And they'll jig left with no instruction to do so. So I'll have a student that will be driving all day, and I'll be asking them to drive straight, drive straight, drive straight. And then all of a sudden they'll start jigging left. And I'm not quite sure why. I guess they're trying to follow the road. Right, so they're trying to follow that road to the left-hand side here. And I actually use that as a visual cue to keep going straight. So we're going to keep going straight, and we're going to cross the curb. And you're just looking where you want to go at this point, and look to the right. And get my mouse out of the way. And you see my head is turned to the right, and you can see that apex. You can see the curbing right there. And then I'm going to keep looking to the right. At the end of this, we got corner 6, and at the bottom of the bottom of the hill, there's some curbing. So let me roll that forward. I'm just looking for that curbing. So there's a cone. I don't know if I'll even be able to zoom in and see it. You can kind of see it. The video quality is not the best to be able to see it there, but there's a cone right here. There is curbing that goes across there. So I'm kind of looking at that curbing, looking down the hill at the curbing. And my turn-in point is, I've got 2 places where I look for the turn-in point here. There's the end of the curbing there. So there's that cone, which is just before the end of the curbing. And then there is the end of the curbing. And then on the inside of corner 6, there is some curbing as well. So I'm kind of looking at where that is. So let's roll that forward, and we'll see what I'm talking about here. So there's your cone. And try to find a clean frame so you can see it. There we go. So there's your cone right there. And you can start seeing, you see a shadow here of the curbing starting up for corner 6. And the pavement curves. There's the edge of the track right there. So I'm going to drive straight until I run out of black, basically, and the gray cement paving goes to there, and I'm actually going to go just a little bit past that paving, the curbing, and then turn in and get it nice and tight right into the apex here. So roll that forward. You'll see I turn my head, but I haven't turned the car yet. And I'm driving right to the edge of that track. You see, it's hard to see the wheel there. Can't see the wheel, but I'm past that curbing, and then turning into the corner. So get it right into the pavement, into the cement on the inside here, because it's cambered right here. So when you pull in here, it's nice and cambered, and you let your car hook up and accelerate through here. Okay, so now corner 7's a little bit tricky. So I let the car kind of come back mid-track, try to find a clean frame. There we go. So we're going to come mid-track about here. Here's your sign for corner 7, left-hand turn. There's a tree here. You can use that tree as a reference if you want. Um, I'm pretty sure this is not the tree people were talking about. So for years, driving at Calabogie, there's been a tree in corner 7 that people use as reference to turn into the corner. This is the only spot really on the track that I have a very difficult time explaining where to go. I kind of doing it by muscle memory, and I'll notice that if I roll this back, what happens is this really flows. So I let the car flow to the right, and then I just start turning left, and I end up at the apex. So if you look carefully, it's at that sign. So I'm thinking here that I actually use, and actually the sign is where the cone is. There you go. See, I've learned something right now. Here's the turn-in point, the cone, which is actually at the sign. So I guess the sign could go away. So you may not want to use this sign. I also sometimes talk about this Marshall hut here as well. The Marshall huts are very conveniently placed at this track. So you can use the Marshall hut. Now, of course, you can't drive. If you drive at the Marshall hut here, you're gonna miss the track and drive on the grass. But you can kind of use it as a visual cue. And I think I've been subconsciously using this sign as my turn-in point, because I definitely do not use the cones on the track, because you can take away the cones and I'll turn at the same spots every time. And I've actually checked that I've done that. So you can use this corner 7 sign and look off into the distance. And I find the track just kind of flows here. I just kind of mid-track and then I turn left. So this is the corner where I have the hardest time explaining where to look, but we'll turn into this corner and you'll see it just flows right down, and we're right at the apex for this one. And now you're going to let the car, I should go back and explain corner 6. So corner 6, you're probably, in 3rd gear, accelerating up the hill here, and you're going to go into 4th gear, probably here. If not, you can hold 3rd gear. Again, don't want to upset the balance through the corner, and go into 4th gear here at some point down the straight, okay? So you want to use the whole track like every other corner. Track all the way to the right-hand side, and then down the straight. Now, we're coming up to Temptation, corner 8. Lots of different talk about how to use this, how to turn this corner, right? So I'm going to give you my way of going through this corner and a few visual cues, and you can use my way or use somebody else's way. Here's your braking markers. 3, 2, 1, and I am going to explain what I look at through this corner. Now, I don't look at all these items every time, but I use them as cues and use them when I'm instructing as well. So we're going to roll this forward. In most cars, if I'm completely honest, completely ignore 3 and 2, and I don't start braking until the 1. Okay, so of course now if I got a student, a new driver in the car, I'm going to get them to brake usually between the 3 and the 2. Unless they're driving a supercar, I don't really need them to braking at the 3. So we're going to get on the brakes here, and there's a turn-in cone right there. So you can see that turn-in cone right here. And completely ignore that cone, at least I do, and I keep driving straight. So now this is in a race, so it's a little bit different. I kind of cut into the corner and I use mid-track here, okay? So what I'd get a student to do, and what I like to do if I'm just kind of driving around, is I go straight until the pavement disappears again. So drive straight and then hook in. And you're still mid-track. You don't need to go right to the edge of the track, and I don't want to be right along the rim shot of the track. I actually like to be kind of in the middle of the corner. Some people like to go right on the edge of the inside here, and some people try to drive the outside of the corner. Let me draw corner 8. Okay, so this is what corner 8 kind of looks like. So it kind of comes up and then it kind of tightens up at the end, right? So we'll draw that as a whole racetrack like that. And I'll kind of give you the schools of thought here. So some people, they drive on the outside here, they dive on the inside and then drive around the inside, kind of go out a bit and then cut in. Okay, so that's one line. Some people take a rim shot, so they drive on the outside and they drive along the outside of the grass, right along the edge here, and then they dive in. Okay, so there's another way of doing that. And I actually find that, well, it's the longest way around the corner, and it's also not safe, I don't think, for new drivers, because if you make a mistake right along the edge of the grass here, especially up here, around here, then you spin out and you end up over here. So what other color can we pick here? Yellow. So if this is kind of what I do, kind of drive up along the edge, and then I kind of come into the middle of the track, and then I follow along and I come out. Now I've kind of reduced the distance here, and it lets me come out to the edge and then kind of drive in and hit the apex of the corner and accelerate out, and it gives me a longer acceleration down the straight. So that's what I do. Now I'm going to go this forward and show you a few visual cues here. As I turn my head into the corner, I was looking through this video early trying to find the break in the wall that some people did not know about. Oh, that is the other thing. So the Marshall station again. So here's a Marshall station again, right? So that Marshall station is also kind of my turn-in point. It's very convenient on this track where the Marshall stations are. So you can't see it in a Formula car. You can kind of see it. But in a sedan, you're higher, so you'll see it. And there's a break in the wall here. And I'm going to go back to red. There's a break in the wall right there. And you can see the curbing. Now, of course, you're not going to stare at that, but by looking at it here, you're going to have the cone there, if there's a cone, and the curbing, and it kind of gives your brain a place to look, right? So now you've kind of got an idea of what you want to look at, and you're going to keep angling through this corner. You can see here, I'm not quite in the center, but as I mentioned, not at the edge here, and I'm not at the edge here, right? So I'm rolling that forward and let the car track out. Now, what I'm doing here is where I get my students to look is there's this cone, which may or may not be there again, and there's a tire wall, which kind of starts here and ends here. The middle of the tire wall, right there, hey, we could use those trees. Look at that. So we could use the tree as well if you really want to, but I don't like using the trees because then we have tornadoes and they disappear. So middle of the tire wall, aiming my car there, right? So I'm aiming for that middle of the tire wall, and that just gives me a visual cue. And again, don't stare at that middle of the tire wall. You've seen it, you're driving towards it, and then I'm going to start looking left, okay, because I want to be looking at the apex, which is over here. So roll it forward, and I'm looking left, and you're going to see here the tire wall that starts on the inside. And you can kind of start driving towards that tire wall. I'm a little bit early here, it looks like, but I have a ton of grip. So as I turn into this corner, I'm kind of looking into that tire wall. So roll it forward, and you'll see there's the curbing that starts to appear, and then we're on the apex and accelerating out, right? So didn't explain braking again. So come back here. On the brakes, after the one, on the brakes here, and you can trail brake through this corner, and that's more advanced, but we're going to trail brake through this corner, and you're basically just lightly, barely touching the brakes. And sometimes I'm not braking, I actually just kind of letting the car drift out, slowing down with the momentum of the car, letting the tires kind of scrub the speed through here. And then at the apex here, nice and early, and you can see where there's extra pavement that was added this year for those of us that are very aggressive hitting the grass. So there's some extra pavement there. You don't really want to hit too many of the curbs at Calabogie, because it's just going to upset the balance of the car. You can kind of just rub it with the tire, but you don't want to be hitting it up here, because then your car kind of juts over. But get into that curbing, get yourself tight, because then you can get on the gas early. So I'm already probably on the gas at this point, and accelerating through this corner. Okay, use the track, let it come out. You can see here I actually was forced out right over the rumble strips at this point. So I'm over the rumble strips on the edge of the track, and that's corner 8. So it's not that big of a mystery. It's just you have to have patience, come into the corner, let the car scrub some speed, and then get it hooked in and then accelerate out. And you want to get yourself on the gas as early as possible. And again, using the whole track here. And now here's where it gets interesting. Corner 9A and 9B, I think, are pretty simple corners. Kind of curves here. And you can do this all with one steering input. So let me erase that. There's grass. Aim for that grass right there, okay? So you're going to be driving straight. You're going to aim for the grass. You're going to turn your steering wheel, and then we'll talk about it as we come over that hill. So probably starting to shift into the next gear, and you can see the sign for 9 right there. And I'm aiming for these this cone. Well, I'm aiming for the edge of the grass. I'm just going to follow the track contour. So I'm aiming towards the edge of the grass here. You can see people drive over it. It's kind of funny because I think I'm even driving over it in my Formula car. Probably not the safest thing to do. And I've been on the grass here as well. There is another cone out here. Forget the cone. Turn your steering wheel. Keep it one angle. You're going to drive through here and then back to the right for corner 10. And the car is just going to track that. And it's pretty much every single car I've ever driven on this track. It's the same angle. It doesn't matter if it's a fast car or a slow car. The only time where I've had trouble with that and explaining to a student when they're driving is if they're driving extremely slow. If you're driving extremely slow, it just doesn't work out. You have to kind of straighten the wheel in between. But if you're carrying speed, it's not going to be a problem. So you're coming down here. The car is going to track out to the left-hand side where there is a cone here, but pretend that cone's not there. And now, again, I'm going to find a clear frame. Clear enough. And again, same thing, top of the hill for corner 10. Okay, so corner 10 is a right-hand turn at the bottom of the hill. You can't see it at this point. There will be a Marshall station on the left-hand side here. So we're going to fast forward through there and find that clear frame. Perfect. So I am driving straight towards the edge of the track. Again, the same as corner 2 and the same as kind of corner 5. I'm driving not parallel with the edge of the track because there's no time to get over to the left-hand side. I'm coming from the right-hand side, driving towards the outside of the track at this point. There's going to be brake markers. You got your 3, 2, 1 down here. And you've also got a Marshall station, again, you can use as your turn-in point. Keep your eye on it, but look to the right and then look down the hill. This is very similar to corner 5. People will get confused, but this is a lot higher speed corner than corner 5. You can carry a lot of speed through here and accelerate down the hill through 11 into corner 12. So this is corner 10 and 11. So coming back up, I'm just going to back up a bit. So I'm angling towards here, and I'm going to drive straight off the track, basically. So we're going to see here, we're going to accelerate, and we're driving straight to the edge of the track, and I'm turning my head, and I'm trying to find a clear frame. So here we go. See, I don't know why it's so blurry. There we go. So here's that Marshall station, and here's the turn-in cone that they give you. Now, if the cone's not there, it doesn't matter, right? So we're going to drive straight until there's no more pavement and then turn into the corner. And not quite that sharp, obviously. This Marshall station is usually, if you're on a lapping day, checkered flag here, checkered flag in corner 15. So if we go back, you can see that Marshall station, and you should be able to see that Marshall station way back here, okay? There's a little bit of a hill here. Hard to see in the Formula car in a sedan, no problem. There's a hill here. As you crest the hill, you'll see the Marshall station. So look for that Marshall way ahead of time. You shouldn't be looking right down in front of your nose right here, right? So we'll roll that forward, driving straight to the left-hand side, and then you see how early I turned my head? I've turned my head well before the turn-in point. Right, so I'm looking where I want to go. So I'm looking through corner 10 and then through 11 it opens up, right? So I'm going to carry speed about, I'd say about half a car width away. Let me erase that. Let me draw that again. From this curb right here, there's a curb there, half a car width away from that one, and tight to the second one. So let's see if I do that in this time. I'm actually pretty close to it in the Formula car. So I'm a little bit farther usually from there in a sedan, but not on the curbing, and accelerating out. Okay, so keep your eye up here. So come back to the first section. There we go. So we hit this apex right here. So we've hit that apex. And at this point, you can see the curbing kind of here, and you can see the cone, of course. And I'm looking for the 12. So there's a 12 sign out here, and I'm looking for it. As I'm coming down here, I just keep looking for it. Yes, you can't see it until you get to here about. Okay, you can't see it until you get there. So there's some curbing here, and there's a 12 sign up here, which we'll get there when we zoom in, we get a little bit closer. But it doesn't matter that I can't see it. I know that it's there, right? So I'm going to be looking at it from here. So I've turned my head, and I'm looking for the sign that's here, even though I still have to make it through corner 11. And that allows me to flow through this corner, because I'm not going to drive. There's no way the car is going to make it through the grass here. So I'm kind of aiming through here and looking where I want to go, right? So always looking way ahead, way up the track, and accelerating hard now up to corner 12. Okay, so here's corner 12. And there's the sign I was talking about. So there's the 12 sign. Here's your exit. Here's your curbing, and there's some pavement there for people that hit the curbing early, which does happen. You can see here my wheel, based on my trajectory, my wheel's pretty close to hitting about here, right? And what I'm going to do for corner 12, now again, this is similar to corner 8. There's a bunch of different ways to do this corner. So the corner is very tight, kind of does that. Kind of goes like that. And I like to go out and then cut across, okay? And I'll let the car track out to the left on the exit. Some people like to kind of come in, hug it, and go like this. And I kind of do a combination sometimes. I'll come out and kind of hug it, and then kind of do like that. So it depends on if I'm understeering or not. I think on this video here, I missed the apex right here a little bit, but I think in this car I get a lot of understeer in the slower corners because the downforce isn't working at that point. So let's move forward here a bit, and see, I'm turning my head to try to see that apex. So here we are. Here's our cone. That is technically the magical turn-in point, but what I like to do is actually run to about here. Okay, so I run a little bit straighter. In a sedan, I run even more out than I do in my Formula car. I run right out and then get a straight. If it's front-wheel drive, I run out even more, okay, as far as I can, basically. Let me roll this back a little bit. So coming through here on the left-hand side, on the brakes hard now, and a downshift. Okay, you're probably going to be going from fourth to third at this point. Get the car turned in, and you notice how my head is turned. Again, that Marshall station, this one's not really used for a cue, just for a flag. Don't need to look at it for turning. And there's cement right here, right where I'm drawing that red right there. We got cement right there. So that's where I'm aiming for. And you can kind of see, I think they've put some pavement here. And because people were hitting the grass there a lot. So we're going to forward that through. So there you can see it. There's the extra pavement that was added because of, right there, because of the people hitting the grass. And yeah, so I missed the apex a little bit here. but not a ton. Um, so here's some another place where people are hitting the grass, and you can see there's rubber marks on the curbing here too, right? So try to hit this, and then the track curves like that, okay, to come up the hill. This is through corner 13 up to 14 at the top of the hill. So we're going to, I let the car track out to the left. If the car is forcing you left, go left. If you can keep the car to the right because you've gone too slow through 12, that's fine. Well, I wouldn't say too slow. If you've slowed down through 12 so you can accelerate through 13, bonus. If you're pushing to the left, don't force the car back right. Let the car flow to the left-hand side here. So you'll see here, I let the car flow to the left. I've carried enough speed that I can't get back over to the right, and that's fine. I let the car flow to the left, and I'm going to just stay left through this corner. It's pretty simple. I just follow the track along the left-hand side, and by following the track here on the left-hand side, I'm going to hit the apex dead on. Now, here's corner 14. This is how I explain it to my students. As you're coming up the hill, you can't really see it in the video, but we'll see it as we come up. There's a Marshall station right here, okay? Aim for that Marshall station. It's the easiest thing to explain to anybody, and it's the easiest thing to see. So aim for the Marshall station, and what you're going to do is, as right now your steering wheel is turned, right? So you get your steering wheel right now is kind of turned like this through this corner, right? As I get to about this point here on the track, right here, when I get there, my steering wheel is going to be straight. Okay, so I'm going to come up the hill, and now my steering wheel is straight about now. Okay, so we'll keep my steering wheel straight, and that is going to drive me right to the edge of the track on the right-hand side. You're going to see it here as I turn my head, but you can see the trajectory of the car is here. Okay, there is a cone here. This is your turn-in point. And this is another place it's hard to explain to a student what to look for coming through this corner, because there's not much in terms of visual cues here. You can see the cement on the inside, and what I do is I get my students to come up the hill, aim towards the Marshall hut, which is right here, straighten the steering wheel, and then look left. Okay, have them look left, eyes left, so that whenever you come up, let's go back a little bit. This is a hard braking zone. You have to brake pretty early. So we're going to drive up the hill, look towards the Marshall hut, straighten the steering wheel at the crest, let the car come to the right-hand side, and look left. I don't really need a cue because I've told them to look left. And by looking left now, it's basically once you look left, you start turning in. And you'll see I hit the apex dead on there. So I'm coming in, straighten my wheel, the car is tracking to the right. I start turning my head to the left as we come up this hill. So I'll just come back here, head is straight, looking left. So head is straight, looking left because my eyes are up towards the top of the hill here, okay? So I'm looking for this apex to accelerate up the hill. So by doing that, and if you don't slow down the car, you're just going to understeer off the track here. So you're going to hit the brakes hard, and then I'm just looking, and I'm using my eyes there and looking right at that apex to trail brake into this corner. So this if you want to practice trail braking at Calabogie, this is a corner to practice it at. So get on the brakes and then get the car turned into the corner. And now I'm looking up the hill. All right, so this one's pretty simple. Look up the hill, and this is what tricks a lot of people on this corner, on this corner 14, is the track. There's a hill here. The track kind of falls off right here. You can't see it. It's even more extreme in the Formula car. It looks like I'm out of track, right? But there's a ton of track over here on the right-hand side, and let the car track out as far as you can. The problem is a lot of students will pinch this because you can't see the track on the right-hand side. So try to force your student, if you're instructing, or force yourself to use as much track as you can here. So let the car come out. See, there's a little bit of a hill there. You can't see it. And then let's try to point out that cone. I don't know if you can see that cone. So this cone right here, probably don't need to draw it, but there's a cone right there. And we'll come back. You can still see the cone, you can still see the cone, you can still see the cone. You can't really see the cone here because of the hill, right? So this is the problem. So then as you come up through it, let the car track out to the right-hand side, okay? Now this is coming up, corner 15, there's going to be a Marshall station up here. Turn just after the Marshall station. I use the Marshall stations in a lot of places. You're going to bring the car over to the left-hand side here to get over on the left for the Marshall station, okay? And then we got a right-hand turn down through corner 15. So let's forward it along, come over to the left-hand side, and short shift. So we're going to accelerate. This is probably third gear, depending on your car, most likely. Third gear through here, sometimes second if you really want to force it. Go into third if you're in second, go to fourth, right at the top of the hill. Usually it's always a short shift, like almost every single car. You're not into the meat of fourth gear yet, but you're going to need fourth gear because you're going to need it to coming down the hill. So here's your 15 sign right there. Keep driving straight. There are a lot of new drivers. What they're doing is they're turning their head to look down through 16, which you can see here is cambered. So this corner is cambered. If you don't get into the hook here, you're going to fall out the outside. So you need to be into the right-hand side in the right spot. But you don't want to be too early. So what happens is you're driving and you've turned your head, and then you end up turning in way too early, right? So there's a cone here, and we'll go back to see where that Marshall station is. Look at that, convenient. The Marshall station is, it's a little bit before the cone, but somewhat lined up, right? I don't turn at the cone. Again, I actually just look for where I want to go. So coming down the hill, turning my head to the right. You see, I've already turned my head. So I'm driving straight, I've turned my head. And I'm looking to see where I want to go. And I lie and say I don't turn at the cone. And it's funny because I do turn at the cone. So I actually that one I turned a little early. So I actually usually turn a little bit past that cone. But it's total visual cue here. I turn my head and I'm looking down the hill. And you can see the cement here. So the cement will appear and you won't see it at first. But if you can come out a little bit longer, similar to a few other corners on the track, where if I can carry straight until about here and then turn in, you'll get a better straight run down the track here. So come in and keep it to the right-hand side. Now your car is going to want to push out to the left here. It's going to want to push kind of out here because of the way the track's cambered and the speed you're carrying. But you need to be over on the right-hand side over here for corner 16. So let the car come about mid-track and then start bringing it back to the right-hand side for corner 16. And what I want to really stress here for corner 16 is, and I find a lot of new people, is they'll wait till they get to the top of the hill. And they're carrying a lot of speed. You're accelerating through this section in fourth gear. Remember, you're going pretty darn fast here. And they're going to want to hit the brakes at the top of the hill. And that's too late. If you're going to slow down for this corner, it's the bottom of the hill, right here, okay? So slow down at the bottom of the hill, or maybe just a lift, because as soon as you crest this hill, you're going to turn left. So if you hit the brakes at the top of the hill, you're going to be turning way too late. The earlier you can turn for corner 16, and I should go back and say that for corner 14 as well, the earlier you can turn for corner 16, the better. It's going to reduce the amount of turning you need for that corner, and it's going to really reduce the load on the car. Okay, so you're going to have a nice straight turn. It's almost a straight at that point. So we're going to bring the car mid-track, as I mentioned, and I'm bringing it back to the right-hand side, and I would have probably lifted, even though I can probably do this flat out in this car, and I'm all the way to the right-hand side, and there's our 16 sign, conveniently located right beside the cone. So the cone, again, try not to harp on it. Don't look at the cones, but because they can disappear. Typically, the 16 sign won't disappear. Somebody's not usually going over there and hitting it. I have seen this cone disappear a lot. But the 16 sign, I don't think I've ever seen disappear. But what you're doing is you're coming up this hill, you've lifted off the throttle or you've braked down, at the bottom of the hill here, right? So this is pretty quick. So just about here, before you crest the hill, you're kind of lifting and maybe a little tap, okay? And not much, just to settle the car, and then turn the steering wheel, look into that corner. So you see here, I've turned my head to the left, and I'm looking through this corner, and we're going to hit the apex of 16 early. And that's going to let me get a straight run so I can be full throttle through this whole section. And this is the only corner on the track that's a little bit different. You can, sorry, not this corner, but the next corner, 17, through Quarry. There's no need to go to the left-hand side. So we're going to carry a ton of speed over on the right-hand side of the track here. And we're going to drive through here. And we're going to be all the way on the right-hand side. Don't force the car left here. If you force the car left at this point, bad things could happen. Okay, so let's keep the car on the right-hand side, and now my wheels are straight. So I'm driving perfectly straight at this point, okay? There's no need to end up over on the left-hand side over here to make this corner. Okay? There's no need to drive over here. So we're going to just stay here. We're going to drive straight, and then we're gonna brake in a straight line and bring the car around the corner. Now, if you really, really want to carry a ton of speed, you can actually drive into corner 17 and brake through corner 17, but that's really if you're pushing it. But you can drive on the brakes hard on a straight line here and then turn in. So we'll carry this forward. I'm going to drive straight. I'm on the brakes now. And there's our cone, which a lot of students, again, because they see a cone over here on the left, they bring the car to the left-hand side so that they can hook in. The other thing with that cone is it really is your turn-in point. I hate using the cones, but it is your turn-in point for this corner. It's not your braking point. If you're braking at this point, it's too late. For a novice, for an advanced driver, you can, as I said, you can carry some speed through here and kind of trail brake through this corner. Now you're going to have to be on your toes, because if you're trail braking through here as you're turning, the back end is going to get really light and you see a lot of spins right here, okay? So I like to brake in a straight line and then turn into the corner. And if you're on the brakes at this point, it's a little bit too late. Novices typically are doing that. They're getting on the brakes at that point, no matter how much I tell them to brake earlier. But luckily, they're not carrying a ton of speed, so we're usually safe through there. So let's forward this along. And you can carry through this corner, turn your head and look through. And I like to tell my students to keep the car mid-track. Okay, so you see how I'm on the right-hand side of the track at this point, and I forward through, and I'm at mid-track. Okay, as I'm driving through here, of course I'm still close here, but I'm going to be about there. So that's mid-track. There we go. And I'm looking for, there's an apex here, there's an exit over here, and it keeps curving around, right? So I'm looking for this apex here, and I'm trying to actually aim more for the exit. I'm not too concerned about this corner here. It's really a throwaway corner for me. I'm looking for the exit more. That's more important. You can carry a lot of speed through Quarry, but you're not going to win or lose in this corner, I don't think. So I'm kind of looking, as I said, out here for the exit. If I hit this, great. If I don't hit it, doesn't really matter to me. So I'm going to forward this through here. And you kind of straightening out the wheel at this point, but it's still turned, because what you're going to do here is it's going to tighten up. So the track's going to tighten up. This is your pit entry here. So if you wanted to go into pits, you're just going to drive straight out here. Okay. Now, we're not going to go in pits. We're going to continue around. Here's corner 20 sign right here. Let the car track out, and it's going to tighten up. And in order to get into that corner here, you can carry momentum around this whole corner. So we're going to come back here. You can carry a ton of speed through here and keep carrying the speed, but whenever you get to about here, you're going to need to lift off the throttle maybe a tiny tap of the brake, but most people don't need to brake here. Lift off the throttle to get the car to turn in, okay? And look for that 20 sign. If you're looking up here, what's going to happen is you're not going to get the car right to make the left-hander for corner 20. So this is corner 19 right here. Right here, this is corner 19. If you are not looking right at corner 20, at the 20 sign, you will never get a good run down the front straight. So you want to get the car as far to the right here as you can so you can get on the gas and drive through 20 as hard as you can, okay? So get the car over to the right-hand side as much as you can. Now, I'm saying that you want to get your car all the way to the 20 sign. You'll never get it there, okay? The car's never going to get there. If you're forcing it there, you got to slow down too much through 19. But it's just a visual cue to get your car to the right-hand side and then look left. See, my head's already turned left. Look left. Try to find that curbing. So I'm just basically looking to the left-hand side now. I'm looking over here, and I'm just looking for this. When I see that, I know that I've got an entry, and I can start accelerating out of the corner, okay? So I see the curbing, and you notice I've turned my head even more at that point. So I'm coming up the hill, I'm looking for that, I see it, and I turn my head more because I need to see this sign. So that sign is telling me that's the front straight. So I know that where the front straight is now, and I can get on the gas around this corner, okay? So we can get on the gas through here and accelerate out. See how that Tomlinson sign right there? I used to use this sign here, which is Multimatic sign, but this new sign is earlier, and you can see it earlier because it's bright white. So use those signs as visual cues if you're instructing. And we'll come back here. I mean, you can see the sign right here if you want. You can just see the sign there, and in a sedan, you're probably going to see it even more. But looking left, and I turn my head even more, right into the apex, and let the car come out to the right-hand side, and you've done one lap of Calabogie Motorsports Park. So there we go. And then I'll play this at high speed right after this, and you can see what it looks like at speed.